her lover doesn't want her after you touch her.
I woke up one morning knowing something in my marriage had been wrong for far too long. My wife, Julia, moved around the house with a coldness that felt intentional. She acted as if I were an inconvenience in my own home. When I tried to talk to her, she'd brush past me, saying she had a busy day. Her distance had become so normal that I almost forgot how she used to hold me, how she used to laugh with me, how she used to care. I followed her into the kitchen, hoping for even a small moment of connection. She avoided my eyes and grabbed her coffee without slowing down. Later that evening, I tried again to bridge the gap between us. I approached her gently, wanting only a small spark of the closeness we once had. She stared at me with irritation, as if my desire for affection was something shameful. When I leaned in to kiss her, she pushed my hand away and told me, "Not today." Her voice was sharp, and the dismissal cut deeper than she realized. I asked why she was acting this way, and she finally snapped. She told me that her lover didn't like being with her after I had touched her. Her words hit me like a physical blow to the chest. I froze in disbelief as she walked out of the room without a trace of regret. The silence that followed her confession felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. I sat alone in the dim light, replaying her tone, her cruelty, and the certainty in her voice. The woman I loved had become a stranger, and I didn't know when it had happened. I thought back to the early days of our marriage when we built dreams together. Those memories felt distant now, buried beneath months of coldness and secrets. When she returned home later, she didn't speak to me. She went straight to the bedroom, humming a tune that sounded far too cheerful for someone who had just broken her spouse. I realized that confronting her directly would only push her deeper into whatever world she had created outside our marriage. I needed clarity before emotion destroyed me. The next day, I reached out to a trusted friend named Mark. He had always been level-headed and honest, someone who could see things clearly when emotions blurred the truth. When I told him what Julia had said, he grew quiet before suggesting I gather evidence. He warned me that affairs rarely exist alone and often carry deeper lies behind them. Reluctantly, I agreed. Over the next few days, I watched Julia more closely than I ever had. I noticed how she guarded her phone, how she smiled at messages she wouldn't explain, and how she returned home smelling of a cologne that didn't belong to me. She left the house with more effort put into her appearance than she ever gave me. She told me she was working late, but her stories didn't match her schedule. I held on to the hope that I was mistaken, even though every sign told me otherwise. With Mark's help, I discovered she had been meeting a man named Victor. He wasn't just anyone, he was a coworker she had once described as rude and unprofessional. I found receipts from hotels and restaurants, all tied to dates she claimed she was at work. Each piece of evidence chipped away at any illusion I had left. I printed everything and kept it hidden in my drawer, unsure of what to do next. When she came home, one night, glowing from whatever attention she had received, I decided I needed to hear her admit it again. I calmly asked who she had been with. She looked at me with the same coldness as before and told me it didn't matter. She said I should get used to the new version of our relationship. I told her I wouldn't accept being treated like a placeholder. She laughed and walked past me as if the conversation were trivial. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to her soft breathing beside me, wondering how someone could feel so far away while being inches from my side. I thought about the life we had built, the trust we had shared, and the vows we made. None of it seemed to matter to her anymore. The next morning, I made a decision that felt both painful and necessary. I wasn't going to beg for love from someone who treated mine like an inconvenience. When Julia left for another meeting, I collected all the evidence I had gathered. I placed it neatly on the table where she usually sorted her mail. I wrote her a short note telling her we needed to talk. Then I walked out of the house, not knowing what her reaction would be. I drove to Mark's place, needing space from the storm waiting at home. Hours later, she called me repeatedly, but I let the phone ring. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. When I finally returned home, she was sitting at the table with the papers scattered around her. Her face wasn't filled with guilt. It was filled with anger. She accused me of invading her privacy and insisted that I had no right to question her choices. She claimed she had been unhappy for years and said Victor made her feel alive. I listened to every word without interrupting. I realized she wasn't sorry. She wasn't conflicted. She was simply done with us. I told her she could have the freedom she wanted. She stared at me as if she hadn't expected me to let go. She asked if I was serious. I told her I was. I told her I deserved better than being compared to another man every day. I told her the love I had given her deserved more respect than she ever offered. For the first time in months, she had no response. Over the next week, I packed my things and arranged to stay with Mark until I figured out my next steps. Julia barely spoke to me as I moved through the house. She looked irritated, as if my leaving inconvenienced her own plans. She didn't try to stop me, nor did she apologize. She simply watched me go with the same indifference she had shown for months. When I walked out of the house for the final time, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I wasn't leaving because I stopped loving her. I was leaving because she stopped loving me long before she admitted it. The air outside felt colder, but also somehow lighter. I didn't know what my future would look like, but I knew it wouldn't involve begging for someone who chose another man over her own husband. As I drove away, I let the quiet settle around me. I thought about the man I had become and the strength I found in finally choosing myself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was heading somewhere I might actually belong.